At UMC, access to your health care is only a call away. Dial 74-NURSE for free, instant medical advice from experienced and trusted UMC nurses, 24 hours a day. Learn more at umchealthsystem.com.
Welcome in, everyone, to RedRaiders.com. Zach Long with Krista Pirtle and Don Williams. We're back at you after a little time away from Texas Tech football. We needed some time to explore ourselves and date other people, but hey, we got back together today, talked to some players and Coach Kingsbury. And guys, the big news, Michael Brewer, the injury to the back. Kingsbury acknowledges that for the first time and classifies his status as day-to-day. We'll get into that a little bit more, but right now, guys, the key thing you look at, 2 freshman quarterbacks are going to battle it out to start for the Red Raiders. And Don, I'm going to start with you. It seems like every year we cover Texas Tech football, if there's some sort of drama that can take place, we find it, and this year we get a heavy dose early. How far back do we got to go to think about a time when 2 true freshmen, one of them is going to start for the Red Raiders against SMU?
Well, that hasn't happened since 1978 when a young man named Ron Reeves, coming out of Monterey High School, actually ran out as a true freshman to start for the Red Raiders at quarterback. That was even before I covered Texas Tech football, Zach. Remember a couple of weeks ago when Cliff Kingsbury said, I'm ready for this to be less about me and more about the players? Well, Cliff's got his wish now, doesn't he?
Wish granted, sir.
This is not totally out of left field, but this is a training camp development that no one could have expected until just a few days ago.
And Krista, when we look at these 2 individuals, obviously Davis Webb we know about. We've talked about him, we've written articles, videos, all that good stuff, but this name right here, Baker Mayfield. I think a few Texas Tech fans and journalists looked at midweek and probably went, who the hell is Baker Mayfield? Well, he's a walk-on quarterback from Austin Lake Travis High School, but that term walk-on, we better be careful with.
And actually walk-on, Cliff actually recruited him when he was a sophomore in Houston, and now offensive coordinator Eric Morris, who is at Tech, recruited him when he was at Washington State last year. This Baker kid is actually pretty good. He had great numbers at Lake Travis, and he actually didn't grow up as this star quarterback like we see with Brewer, whose family is in the football business. But this kid worked his way up. Coach even said that it is a steal to get him because he is a walk-on and he is really scholarship talent, and just expect some good things from this kid.
And obviously, anytime you have that UIL state championship ring on your finger, there's a certain level of respect that has to come in with that. Back to Michael Brewer. Obviously, the injury, it was classified as a re-aggravation, is what Cliff kind of told us a little bit earlier of an injury that he kind of told us about on media day, that he had some back issues. They've classified him as day-to-day. I can tell you this, sources have also indicated to me this time frame could be anywhere upwards of 2 months to get him fully recovered from the time that injury happened. So this could be a prolonged process for the Red Raiders to deal with. And Don, you look at Baker Mayfield, I can also tell you he's been getting a lot of reps in practice, and not just regular reps with the first team offense, giving himself a chance to prove to those coaches that if they need him, he can play. But right now, you look at Michael Brewer, we're not ready to close the door on him yet. There's still a chance he plays for the Red Raiders this season.
Yeah, I mean, Cliff Kingsbury said earlier that obviously he did look good before he hurt the back again. And of course, everyone expected Michael Brewer to be the starter, has expected Michael Brewer to start in 2013 ever since 2012 or maybe even before then. I think the whole issue with when Michael Brewer gets back on the field and when he actually is starting games for the Red Raiders, a lot of that probably depends on what happens between now and then with these 2 young guys, because as you mentioned, Davis Webb and Baker Mayfield have been splitting snaps, dividing them evenly with the first team. If one of these guys jumps out there and really performs well in September, then they may be a little bit reluctant to mess up what they have going. I mean, let's say theoretically that goes out there and goes 4-0 in the first 4 weeks, and Michael Brewer at that point then is ready to come back in. It might be a situation where you have a freshman quarterback who's performed really well, is clicking with the receivers, and maybe they stay with what's working. Of course, you don't know that because now that SMU game is certainly no gimme, but it's put an interesting spin and dynamic on this particular August training camp.
And Krista, while he was classified as day-to-day, we found out a little bit later in terms of the mindset of some of the offensive players, they're expecting one of these freshmen to probably start week 1.
And what's great about this is not many media outlets caught this, and it was pretty clear. DeAndre Washington, the sophomore back, said that they expect for a freshman to start, but the predecessor to that, he was asked the question, so does the running game need to take a load on itself to help these young guys out? And he said, well, yeah, we're going to have a freshman start at quarterback, and then he went on to talk about helping them transition from a high school player to a D1 player. So, I mean, it was a little smooth sailing into that, but it was a pretty obvious thing to catch.
And speaking of smooth sailing, guys, a lot of energy around this Texas Tech program when Kingsbury took over. Everyone was riding on cloud 9. Happy time all around, and oh my goodness, they've taken a slap in the face this week. Things they expected to fall in place obviously aren't there. And I'll start with you, Don Williams. Is it panic time yet for Texas Tech, or do people need to take a chill pill and back off just a touch?
I can see it both ways. I mean, it could be panic time because quarterback, I think, is the last position that you want to have a true freshman running out there as a starter. I mean, coaches say the closer that you are to the ball, the harder it is to come in and play right away. I mean, that's not a position that you want to be starting a guy who was in high school at this time last year. On the other hand, though, I think it's kind of a neat thing. It'll kind of be fun to watch because it's such a tremendous unknown factor, particularly when we've had several months now to get accustomed to Davis Webb, and we got the chance to see him in 3 spring scrimmages. We know what he brings to the table. He's the guy who probably has the most physical ability of any of the 3. I mean, he's a guy who has a big arm, maybe even NFL potential, and the players, the teammates have dubbed him the alpha male because he'll chew out the defense, talk trash to the defensive players, the defensive coaches. He'll get on his receivers who are older than he is when they bust a route. He's not afraid of anybody. And so we kind of accepted that Davis Webb could be the guy, and now you have Baker Mayfield making this kind of out of nowhere bid, and I think it'll be cool to watch because, again, folks who are fans of Texas high school football, he played on the most successful high school program in Texas for the last decade, and that year that he had 2 years ago was very impressive. So he's played in a lot of big games, he's been in a lot of pressure situations, and he seems to be taking this opportunity and running with it.
And he fits that mold that Kingsbury asked for. Play quick, make fast decisions, and don't overthink what you're doing on a football field, and he's kind of shown that this week.
And he's also a guy with a lot of mobility. I asked Cliff during Big 12 Media Days, what are the things that you look for when you're recruiting a quarterback? And he said, once you get beyond Mike Leach's accuracy and decision making, with the way the game is now, you want a quarterback who can extend the play, because if you have five receivers out and you get pretty good pass protection, eventually somebody's going to come open. So you need a quarterback who can move well in the pocket, who can get out of the pocket and throw, and this is a kid who can do that.
And Chris, I'll go over to you. Are you going to talk me the wrong way off the ledge, or thou shalt trust in Cliff Kingsbury?
Well, it's going to happen under the lights. We can see one thing now, but when those lights come on Friday night, we can see a whole different thing. So I'm going to pull a Lee Corso, since I've got my pencil, and say, hey, Raider Nation, not so fast, my friends. You got to chill out, y'all. This is nuts. Sure, you're going to have a new quarterback anyways. It's going to be okay. Yes, you have a new offensive line, but we're hearing that they're improving, they're working hard, and they're big dudes. They'll block something. And then you've got depth at the running back. You've got Kenny Williams, who'll run you over. You've got DeAndre Washington, whose mobility looks superb after that knee injury. And then on the outside, take your pick. If they have like 4 footballs to throw at one time, they'd be fine. So chill out. It'll be okay.
Yeah, and what's the problems to have? They've got a lot of positives right now, and if they just get somebody back there who's adequate and can do the smart things that Kingsbury asked him to do, they're not that bad right now. They've got way too many weapons around to drop that far off. Don't you think so, Don Williams?
Well, I mean, and this kind of dovetails on what Krista was saying. Everyone knew and had to accept that whoever started quarterback for the Red Raiders in 2013 was going to be a guy who had not started a college football game before. It's just that everyone assumed that guy would be Michael Brewer, and then they came to grips with the fact it could be Davis Webb. And now, 2 weeks out from the first game, everyone's blindsided by the idea that, heck, it might be neither of those guys. It might be the guy who probably had as impressive a high school resume, even more so maybe than Michael or
Absolutely.
Davis.
But in the meantime, it gives people a lot of things to worry about, talk about, and entertain their day with, and/or
Which is good for us.
Hey, good for us. We're in the things to talk about business, and God knows this has given us plenty to talk about. And on that note, we got plenty more to talk about all next week. More developments. We'll keep an eye on that quarterback race and all those good things. Until then, you know where to keep it locked into. LubbockOnline.com and RedRaiders.com for full coverage of Texas Tech football. For the man, the myth, the legend, Don Williams, and Chris the Portal, I'm Zach Long. We'll frickin' see you next time.